Welcome, everybody. I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report. We are here to talk about Ukraine, all things Ukraine. Woo! Well, not all things Ukraine, but about the latest war updates. Welcome, everybody, YouTubers, Twitchers, Facebook, LinkedIn, maybe even Twitter, and especially my TikTok buddies over there on my iPad. Hey, everybody, look, and the notification even worked for one person on TikTok. So it's a glorious Monday. The sun is setting. It's literally an inch away from my balcony edge. So for those of you annoyed by the sun, it'll be gone in a moment. But yeah, do a quick hello, as always, of where you guys are hailing from, please. And I will start shortly anyway while you're introducing yourselves. But I think it's always nice to say, I'm not calling, but I'm weighing in from this place or that place or that place. Otherwise, yeah, I'm good. Monday, lots of news as always. Thank you for the hat, for the sombrero. I always think of that as a sombrero. Yeah, so things are pretty good here, folks. Oh, I was going to say TikTokers. Actually, TikTokers, one thing, I discovered this last week, but I will keep reminding you all, and actually the mods, if you're listening, remind people too. On TikTok, I found out if you buy the gold or diamonds, whichever it is you buy for gifts, if you buy it on your desktop computer, you get more money than if you buy it on your phone. Now, when you spend it, it's the same. But apparently, buying it on your computer, you get more money than buying it on your phone. I had no idea, meaning the initial purchase of the money. So now you know. So here we go, guys. So yeah, let me just dive right in. I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report. We talk about Ukraine pretty much every day, Monday to Friday of the week. That is 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S., the latest war news. The most important way you guys can help me out, I'm trying to do this full time, is to gift and to follow. I'll try to remember to remind you guys several times throughout the show to follow me on TikTok, follow me on YouTube and everywhere else. For the gifts, as always, and actually the gifts work out kind of nicely because on YouTube, the gifts also work out. Thank you for the hat on TikTok. The gifts on YouTube work out because they are also a way of asking questions, super chat questions. So on YouTube, for example, if you use super chat questions, you help me out, but also I will always answer those questions before I get to anybody else's questions. On TikTok, the questions are in the Q&A function in my profile. So definitely submit your questions there. And for gifts, of course, we all know our TikTok gifts. I am very happy to get all your funny little hats and everything else. And I will always try to do a shout out if I catch it happening. So thank you for those. That's about it. Afterwards, we'll do a little hangout at my Discord, discord.aravosis.com. Thank you for the little heart on TikTok. And let's get rolling, guys. So, yes, happy October. So, a couple big stories. I'm going to talk about a lot of little news today, but a couple of the big stories are Russia hitting Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital, with a massive drone strike today. I've also got a lot of updates about mobilization for Russia. It ain't going well. Because remember, they're trying to get this extra 200, they said 300,000 troops. It could be even more. It's blowing up in their face, literally and figuratively. But let's start with the drone strike. So the Russians, as you know, basically bought a lot of drones from Iran. Thank you for the galaxy there. From Iran. Possibly several thousand of them. The first shipments, we believe, came in August. And the Russians have been using these. They are technically called loitering drones, but they are actually kamikaze drones. So, for you and me to call them, they're kamikaze drones, based on the concept of kamikaze fighters in World War II, Japanese who would take their plane and crash it into U.S. ships. And it was very hard to defend against that. Thank you, Debbie, for that. So these drones are loitering drones and by the way, we make them too. They're called Switchblade drones in the US. And the drones can sort of fly around, look around for a target, you guide it, and then you crash it into the target. And the drone has a bomb in the front of the drone. Thank you for the origami there. Has a bomb in the front of the drone, and the bomb goes off when it crashes. Okay. So very simple sort of concept. Well, these drones are much easier, they're easier to intercept than a lot of the other drones. Okay. Thank you for that, Stephen. So that's the good news. The bad news is the Russians are using so many of them at once that it's hard for the Ukrainians to hit all of them. Some of them get through and they cause damage. And that's what happened today in Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital. The Russians attacked with 28 drones The Ukrainians, again, knocked down a lot of them. The Russians, of course, waited until it was the beginning of rush hour. They didn't do it overnight. They always seem to kind of wait until people are congregating, people are out of bed, they're on the streets, they're in traffic, etc., in the office. Thank you for the hats. And the other really nasty thing the Russians did today, but they've done this before. It's something Al-Qaeda, the terrorist organization, does. And a number of you will recognize it. I'm not even going to tell you the cultural reference because a number of you are going to get it. You tell me because I had forgotten about this until a number of folks on TikTok brought it up. What the Russians do is they attack, they blow up, and then they wait an hour until all the emergency personnel arrive, the firefighters, the ambulances, right, medics, things like this, and then they blow it up again. Horrific. Al-Qaeda used to do this when they attacked our embassies, sort of very famous Al-Qaeda attacks with Osama bin Laden back in, I think it was 1996 or 98, but it was U.S. embassies in Kenya and somewhere else. And basically that's what they did. They would blow it up, have chaos, people running, and basically either the Atlanta bomber, I did not realize if that was the same thing, but basically the idea is to get everybody running in a certain direction and then blow up in that direction, or in this case, you just wait until the emergency responders come. Well, that's what the Russians did today. They waited an hour and then attacked again when everybody was there trying to help. And bingo, Aaron got it. Hunger Games did this. Now, I actually don't remember from Hunger Games that happening, but a number of folks brought it up. I love Hunger Games, but a number of folks brought it up. So the attack only killed 4 people because the Ukrainians were able to blow up so many of these. Also, a number of the attacks were on infrastructure so that there may not have been anybody in the building at the time. The Russians are still trying to take down electricity. Thank you for the hat on TikTok. They're trying to take down electricity and electrical generation for the winter so that basically the Ukrainians will freeze to death in the winter is the idea. One woman who did die, very sad. Basically, what they hit, among other places, was an apartment building. One woman and her husband died. She was 6 months pregnant, and she and her husband both died. 2 other people as well. Per Politico, what was this? Washington, D.C., the White House is looking at imposing further sanctions on Iran for helping Russia with these drones. The Iranians are still denying the drones, and it's really weird. They're still claiming, we sold nothing to the Iranians, to the Russians. We don't know what you're talking about. And I mean, they got really good pictures of the drones today. They know they're Iranian drones. They're not getting it from anybody else. It's from the Iranians. So the Iranians are playing games. There was an interesting analysis today by the general that I've cited for you guys a lot, who's very good. General Mark Hertling, former American head of the army in Europe. And Hertling did just a quick Twitter thread today, sort of analyzing the issue with the drones, giving background on them, things like this. But he was explaining what the best, thank you, Stephen, on TikTok, what the best way was to respond to the drones in terms of taking them down. He said there were 4 main ways: electronic jamming, shoulder-fired air defense, basically Stinger missiles, massive small arms fire, so meaning using, basically handguns and everybody fighting at the same time into the air, or I guess machine gun, but firing multiple people in the air at it at the same time. And there was actually a video today that CNN was showing, among others, that showing just that a number of Ukrainian state police or something, 3 or 4 guys firing, and they actually got the drone, one of them at least, which is great. Or laser weapons. And laser weapons are still under development. As I recall, the Israelis, I think, are testing one. Somebody had filled me in on this a few months ago. I mean, it's public, but a few months ago, the Iron Dome technology the Israelis currently have for, fighting off, basically defending the air. There's another one, and what's it called? It's not laser dome, but it's something like that. And it's the newest one, which basically would use lasers to shoot down incoming projectiles, which would be kind of amazing. I mean, really kind of wild. But nonetheless, not available yet. And the Israelis are still not even letting the Ukrainians use the Iron Dome. So, let's see when that happens. One of the other issues that Ukraine has to think about with regards to these drones is The drones themselves cost about $20,000 each. The kamikaze drones, the Iranian ones. You don't want to use a weapon that costs much more to take it down. Because Iron Beam, is it? Are you joking, or is it actually called that? You don't want to use a weapon that costs a ton more. For example, you don't want to use a $100,000 anti-aircraft weapon to take down a $20,000 drone. It's just not. It's not, cost effective. So that's one of the issues they've got to think about. The small arms fire can be an issue in a populated area because you can injure people, things like that. So there's a lot of issues the Ukrainians are still trying to figure out. I also saw on the news tonight that the US and NATO were not really prepared for this. For whatever reason, they didn't think the Russians were going to go to the Iranians and get drones. I don't quite know why we didn't think that might happen, but nonetheless, we didn't. So the Ukrainians were not really prepared for this. Now, another story that I wish would go away, and it doesn't, thank you for the glasses, Debbie, is Elon Musk. He's back. Oh, I've got to pull up. Hold on. I've got to pull up the other quote from Elon. So Elon, I don't want to talk about Elon, but it's an important story because it gets to the whole issue of, let me pull this up here. It gets to this issue of Starlink and trying to help the Ukrainians have connections in the with their internet. I'm trying to pull this up. I've got the one quote I printed out, or the one tweet, but actually it was the earlier tweet too. Okay, I'm launching my, one moment here, my tweet bot, so I can read you the Elon tweets. But the second one I've got here, basically Musk, as you may recall, started Starlink in Ukraine many months ago, offered it for free. It's a network of satellites that offers satellite internet. And you've got these like boxes, and gave the boxes or whatever to Ukrainians. And it allows them to get internet, which is really great. I mean, from just the satellite anywhere. Now, we found out subsequently that the US government was actually paying for a lot of this, that it wasn't all a gift from Elon, but part of it was. But that was the first little thing that was a bit annoying, just because he took credit for all being free and taxpayers were paying for part of it, at least. But part of it was free. I will still, Poppy, I'll give him credit, right? Part of it was free. Then last week, we found out that Elon had contacted the government, the Pentagon, a month ago and said, it's too expensive. I don't want to pay anymore. Either you pay or I'm pulling the plug. And a lot of people were not thrilled about that, because this has been really important for Ukraine right now, for its counteroffensive. You've heard about how successful Ukraine's been in the last month or two, going after the Russians, getting some of their land back. And this Starlink from Elon Musk is crucial for the Ukrainians right now. And his threat to just immediately unplug it unless he gets paid sounded like, well, it sounded like extortion, right? It sounded like putting a gun to the head, and it just, it's not cool, and it's funny. I'm a lawyer, and one of the things in law, and it's something that I think like a lot of non-lawyers don't fully appreciate, but there's a difference in the law between not helping someone and helping them, and then you stop. And what I mean is, I see you drowning on a lake. Legally, I don't have to help you, in American law at least, if you're drowning on a lake. I don't have to help you. Let's say I see you drowning and I throw you a rope and you grab the rope and I pull you in halfway. And then I go, you know what? I don't want to help you anymore. And I let go of the rope and you drown. Now I'm responsible legally for killing you. But I would not be responsible legally if I just sat there and went, oh, you're drowning, bye-bye, and didn't help you at all. And that's, I think, a big part of what Elon Musk's problem is with all of this is he decided to help. He decided to take credit for helping. He decided to say it's all going to be free. Now, Elon Musk knows how much Elon Musk's technology costs. It's not like it was a big surprise to him that suddenly someone said, Elon, did you know how much Starlink costs? And he said, oh my God, I had no idea. Right? Elon knew what he was getting into. Something changed his mind. And it's not only being I guess we don't use the phrase anymore, whatever, a giver, somebody who gives a gift and wants it back. I'm guessing we don't use that phrase, so I'm not going to say it. But somebody who wants the gift back, but it comes, on the news that Elon is having this secret phone call or phone calls with Vladimir Putin, which we now know he did. Subsequent to the phone call, he's been putting out Russian propaganda. He put out a Russian propaganda peace proposal. He did more crap today that I'm going to read you in a second, his tweets today. Coming on the heels of that, it just feels even more disingenuous to me that he was threatening to pull the plug on Starlink when we know he's then having these secret phone calls with Vladimir Putin. It just, so you get it. A lot of people were not happy. Well, Elon then last Friday, I think it was, turns around and says, fine, I'm the only one doing it. Everyone else is making money, but I'm just going to turn it on again because everyone doesn't care about me. And it was, and you're sitting there, by the way, Elon, I think, fired his whole communications department at Tesla like a year or two ago. He doesn't do comms very well, communications. I would have told him, dude, what you should have done is you should have said, you know what? This is important. Lots of companies are sucking at the federal trough. They're going to the government for money, but Tesla is a different company. We are here to help people. We're here for the future, and the future is peace. And therefore, we are going to keep helping Ukraine because it's the right thing to do, even if nobody else in town will step up and do it too. And everyone would go, oh my God, seriously, would that not be a great messaging point for him to go, you know what? It's the right thing to do, even if I take a loss. No, he got out there and went, fine, I'm going to do it anyway, even though no one's paying me and no one gives me credit. It was just like, dude. So anyway, here we go. Let me pull up the tweets now. All right. So here we go. Elon's 2 tweets today. Someone tweets at Elon and says, Elon, do you think there's a possibility of nuke war or World War III? Elon responds, if Russia is faced with the choice of losing Crimea. Now, Crimea, just to remind folks, is this territory on the deep south of Ukraine, this peninsula hanging down. It was stolen by the Russians in 2014. The Russians invaded in 2014 and forcibly took this land of Ukraine's, okay? So Elon says, if Russia is faced with the choice of losing Crimea or using battlefield nukes, they will choose the latter, meaning they'll choose to nuke everybody if they're in danger of losing Crimea. We've already sanctioned, cut off Russia in every possible way. So what more do they have to lose? If we nuke Russia back, they will nuke us, and then we have World War III. And he goes on, whether one likes it or not, Crimea is absolutely seen as a core part of Russia by Russia. Crimea is also of critical national security importance to Russia, as it's their southern Navy base. Again, you're going, Elon either Googled Wikipedia or Putin called and said, Elon, it's our southern naval base, right? You know what I mean? Elon did not come up with this, critical national security importance of the southern naval base. Elon didn't know. There's no way he knew that Sevastopol was a big naval base for the Russians. From their standpoint, losing Crimea is like the U.S. losing Hawaii and Pearl Harbor. Well, that would be true if the U.S. only acquired Hawaii and Pearl Harbor 8 years ago. And if we acquired it by stealing it from somebody else, then it would be just like the U.S. losing Hawaii and Pearl Harbor. Except Hawaii and Pearl Harbor have been part of the U.S. for a long time now. And I don't think we stole it from anybody. I'd have to double check on that one, but it's been a while now. It just, the other thing is there's so much wrong with this. And what worries me is, let me look here. Elon's got 109 million followers on Twitter. This is why I talk about Elon Musk. People pay attention to him. I mean, you may not pay attention to him, but 110 million people pay attention to this guy on Twitter. He's got a big microphone. He's putting out Russian disinformation. He's putting out Russian talking points. Thank you for the happy meal there, Purnell. For example, if they use nuclear weapons and if we nuke Russia back, they will nuke us and then we have World War III. Who the hell is talking about America nuking Russia? Literally no one has suggested that if Russia uses nuclear weapons in Ukraine, we should respond by nuking Russia. I mean, nobody is suggesting that's insane. Right. But Elon has this great, grad school moment of his where if we nuke Russia back, then they will nuke us. And then we have World War III. Well, I mean, I guess you're right, Elon. If we nuke Moscow, they will nuke us back and we will have World War III. But nobody thinks that's, we're not gonna, you moron. Thank you for the glasses. I just, this, and I'm going to spend just a little more time on this because it matters, because people do worry about nuclear war. And unfortunately, people like Elon are tapping into this and it's scaring people. I had a long talk with a friend this weekend about it, who just thinks there's zero possibility of Putin using nukes. Couple different things. Thank you for the corgi and for the hat. First of all, if you think Putin's crazy, he's crazy. He could use nukes. He's crazy. If you think he's crazy, then there's nothing we can do to stop Putin from doing crazy things because he's crazy, right? Giving him Crimea isn't going to stop him from being crazy. He's crazy. So he still could use nukes because he's crazy, right? So, you really can't sign a contract, a peace treaty with a crazy person. It doesn't really get you anywhere, That's the first problem. Let's assume that Putin is not crazy, and I think Putin is not crazy. What would be the rationale for Putin to use nukes? And again, I had a long conversation with a friend of mine who has a long background on these issues. And he said, there's literally no reason why Putin would do this. He said, what does he get out of it? He doesn't get, thank you, Messi, for that. He said, there's no military advantage by using the nukes. He said, it's not like you drop tactical nuclear weapons and you somehow destroy Ukrainian troops. I mean, sure, you kill the troops you hit, but it's not like all, the million men in the Ukrainian army and women all get together and stand in one spot and wait for you to drop a nuke on them, right? So there's no military advantage to dropping the nukes. Now, you could drop the nukes because you just want to freak the hell out of the Ukrainians and try to get them to buckle and say, oh my God, no more, we give up. Does anybody really think the Ukrainians are going to sit there if they get nuked and they're going to sit there and go, oh, well, now we're willing to give up our country because Putin had the nerve to use nukes against us? There's no way. I mean, if anything we've learned about the Ukrainians, it's, you will not like me if I'm angry. You really don't want to piss off the Ukrainians. Thank you for the hat there. I just feel like there's no way Putin can count on that. So why would he? Now, what's the U.S. going to do? Elon's like, well, there's no more sanctions. Well, there kind of are more sanctions. First of all, if we really want to get weird about it, let's go back to the Cuban Missile Crisis, where we had an embargo, literally a naval embargo of Cuba to stop any boats from coming in or going out. That was like a big reason that we almost went to war with the Soviet Union. We could have an embargo of Russian ports where no boats come and leave. We could cut off Russia entirely from selling its energy. Now, the world economy would get hit really bad if that happened. I mean, these are things that have a danger to the world with the economy. But, if somebody's throwing nuclear weapons around, we've got other problems than just worrying about the economy, right? So there are economic things we can do. There are military things we can do. Right? Some of the former U.S. generals have been talking about if Putin were to use nukes, that we should go in and destroy Putin's Black Sea Fleet, as Elon Musk tells us. Oh, what was it? Crimea's critical national security importance to Russia. It is their southern naval base. Well, if we go in and destroy their southern naval base because they used a nuke, do you think they'd care about that, Elon? Why? Yes, they would care because Elon said they would care. So why would Russia want to convince us to do that, right? Thank you for the party favors there. Why would Russia want us to do that? The other thing, my friend and I came up with a joint idea of what the West could do to respond to a nuclear attack by the Russians on Ukraine. And we thought of basically two-part, a no-fly zone and sort of a no-ground zone. One, you set up a no-fly zone across all of Ukraine, frankly. First, we were saying only the parts of Ukraine that haven't been invaded, that haven't been occupied yet. Because remember, you've now got the Russians occupying Crimea. You've got them occupying pretty much all of Kherson. Well, not all. Much of Kherson. The Ukrainians have been winning back the land in Kherson now. A lot of Zaporizhia, but 30, 40% might be free. A lot of Donetsk, not a lot, maybe half of Donetsk, and Luhansk might still be, 95%, 98%. Okay. So depending on each province, but you've got the Russians still occupying a lot of that, but you could have a no-fly zone over all of Ukraine. And literally it would be NATO coming and saying, okay, Russians, we control the air, If we see one Russian plane enter Ukrainian airspace, we are shooting it down. If we see one Russian radar turn on, we are blowing it up. Whether it's, thank you, Messi, whether it is in Ukraine or in Russia, you light us, it's called lighting it up. You light us up and we are blowing it up, right? We see any kind of anti-aircraft gun of any kind turn on, we are destroying it. That would be the first thing we would do. Second thing we would probably do, potentially, is move NATO troops in, assuming, now mind you, this is all based on what the Ukrainians want us to do. Of course, it's only Zelensky saying, please do this. But if Zelensky were to say so, we would then move troops in, I think, NATO troops, and say, we are now going to help I don't want to say occupy, because occupy sounds bad in this context. Thank you for the hats there. But we will come in and spread our NATO troops all over Ukraine in all the parts that are currently free, so that there isn't a chance in hell of the Russians taking any more land. And finally, we give Ukraine all the weapons it wants. We give Ukraine the long-range rockets it wants. We might even give them planes. We probably would give them tanks. I mean, we're talking about Putin literally using a nuclear bomb, right? Why would Putin do this? Why would he want this? What Putin should do is scare the hell out of us so that we think he's going to use a nuke. That's what Putin should do. He should not actually use a nuke. He gets nothing out of using a nuke. He gets everything out of convincing us he's going to use a nuke, because what did he get already out of convincing us he's going to use a nuke? He convinced Elon Musk he was going to get a nuke, and now we have Elon Musk's daily lobbying, ridiculous, for capitulation and appeasement, and for Ukraine to turn over all of its land to the Russians. As I said, the threat works a lot better than anything else. Let's continue. Oh, and as always, I didn't do my reset. I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report. If you like my free media in general, and independent media, please help me out. I'm doing this full time on TikTok. That means the gifts, and I appreciate the gifts that you give on YouTube. Those are the super chat questions. And please make sure to follow me, because I keep forgetting to ask you guys to follow on TikTok and YouTube and everywhere else as well. Let's see. Now we got that stuff. The mayor of Moscow. Oh, a lot of mobilization stuff. This is interesting. So a couple of weeks ago, we heard about the Russians mobilizing 300,000 men and this kind of stuff. And things weren't really going too well for Boris and Natasha in terms of the mobilization itself. Not going well at all, right? They started dragging men and women, men, not women. They started basically going into people's homes, going into their apartments, wading into their apartment buildings, stopping them at the metro, and just drafting random people on the street. They were drafting protesters, like all of Putin's promises. If you're in school, you won't get drafted. He lied. If you are over draft age, something like upper 20s, you won't be drafted. He lied. If you have no military experience, you won't be drafted. Thank you, Candace, for that. He lied. So he lied about everything. Then he had to give a speech a couple of days later and say, oh my God, I know we screwed up. We're not going to screw up again. We're not going to do any of that stuff anymore. We're only going to draft people men who have been in the military of a certain age with no kids or whatever. And what did he do? He broke it again. He broke it again. So let's go on with this. So the mayor of Moscow says that he is ending the city's military mobilization drive after a backlash, meaning that searches for men evading the draft would halt. The announcement, which was in effect as of 2 p.m. Moscow time today, follows a string of raids in which soldiers and police issued military summonses to men in office buildings, hostels, cafes. Thank you for the hat. In some cases, men were seized off the streets to fight in Ukraine. I've got a picture I want to show you. This was kind of amazing. This was a picture, I think, from Getty Images, and they were showing newly mobilized men. So the new men, we aren't using the word draft, but it's kind of drafted. I mean, it's a small draft, basically, right? Take a look at these guys. Okay, so these are the newly mobilized men. Oops. These are the newly mobilized men, okay? I'm going to zoom in here so you can get a good look at several of these guys. Okay, first of all, there's this guy. Okay, this guy was just, conscripted, but I think the word conscription doesn't mean a lot to everybody else. It's conscription, but it's draft. I mean, it's a draft in essence, but it's a partial draft. This guy, could be my father, and I'm not that young. I mean, he could be your grandfather. There's like, this is a newly conscripted guy. Look at the guy standing next to him. This is the guy standing next to him. Okay. He ain't a spring chicken either. The guy next to him on the phone. This guy's younger. He may only be 55 to 60. Right? The guy behind him. Oh, the two guys behind him. Check out the two guys behind phone guy. These are not men in their 20s who are being drafted. Look at these guys. I mean, and this was just a sample. These were 5 guys grouped together in one photo. Okay. I mean, as somebody just said, these are pensioners. Some of these guys are guys who probably basically had retired. I mean, really just horrible. This weekend, again, sort of part of the mobilization stuff, Russian troops, I believe newly mobilized troops in Belgorod. Belgorod is a Russian town. I always like to sort of point out where it is. Right northeast of Kharkiv. Kharkiv is Ukraine's second largest city, population, 1.5 million, I think. And Kharkiv is literally like 20 miles from the Russian border, okay? You then get to the Russian border, you cross over another 25 miles, right, or more or less where my finger is, 25 miles, and you get the town of Belgorod. So Belgorod is very close to Ukraine, and it's the town that the Ukrainians have been hitting a lot, oil refineries, ammunition storage, because it is a major logistics hub for the Russians fighting in eastern Ukraine. I mean, again, you can imagine if it's literally right here, it does a pretty good job of helping you fight in all of this area, right? So it's a big logistics hub. Well, the 2 or 3, I think it was 3 that I finally read, soldiers from Tajikistan fighting with the Russians get into an argument with the other Russian conscripts, so the other newly hired Russian troops, about religion, which makes me think, well, I think it's pretty much a guarantee that, wow, beautiful sunset tonight. Always bums me out when you don't get a good view on the computer of sort of how nice it is, but oh my God, beautiful sunset. Thank you for the glasses. Gets into a fight about religion. The 2 or 3 Tajik troops pick up their machine gun and open fire on all the other troops who are with them, killing at least 11 of the other Russian soldiers who were newly mobilized. Now, this is not just a story that's being shared in the West. The Russian Defense Ministry finally had to come out and comment on the story. I believe this was Saturday. It's a real story. It's crazy. The son of one of the commanders called Allah a coward. I would not be surprised, Mike. Is that true, Mike? Because Mike is saying on TikTok. I mean, because I was assuming, first of all, that the Tajik guys were the ones being attacked because they opened fire. Second of all, I actually don't know a lot about Tajikistan, but I was assuming it might be Muslim. So that's also backing up what I was thinking. Yeah, okay. So that's what happened. They decided to be jerks, attack Allah, and accuse him of being a coward, and they opened fire on people who are super duper. They insulted Islam. Yeah. So people who are super duper religious, you know? Big deal, though. I mean, machine gun opening fire on all the other guys. Because it also, by the way, it also shows you're not dealing with your friends if you're willing to open fire with a machine gun on them. You're dealing with people who don't like each other. And these guys were thrown together to fight together. Yeah, not good. A few more stories here. The Russian news is reporting. Oh, yeah. Russian news is reporting, and people even grabbed screen grabs of the Russian news shows, that Russian units are asking people to crowdfund, to basically get money from the public in order to pay for winter gear, so winter clothes, socks, drones. Okay. I mean, we helped fundraise for drones for Ukraine, and ammunition for rifles. They don't have ammunition. They literally are telling them to basically crowdfund publicly to raise money for your ammunition you're going to be shooting at the Ukrainians. That's bad. And that kind of stuff, it is not great for morale, but it also shows how bad, again, the Russian logistics are. That we knew this. I mean, we sort of knew this was going to happen in terms of the Russians bringing these additional troops in, because the Russians already were not able to provide for the troops they've got in Ukraine, right? Remember at the very beginning, even when they were invading Kyiv in the south and they came down in that 40-mile caravan of trucks bringing food and water and fuel and ammunition and, right, artillery shells, you name it, got stuck and then destroyed. The Russians do a really lousy job of resupplying their troops. And this is just more proof of it. The Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant got, the Russians once again fired on the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant. They hit an electrical generator today, and the plant had to run on backup generators for a while. Now, the concern there is the backup generators are literally diesel fuel generators. I think I'd read there may be 20 of them. So they're somewhat redundant, but they're diesel fuel generators. They can only run so long. It's not like they run forever on diesel fuel, right? And the Russians keep hitting it. Well, why do the generators matter? Because you need the generators to keep the cooling system going on the nuclear plant so the nuclear plant doesn't melt down and then explode. I don't know. I do know. They're just, it's all, everything they do is a different form of terrorism in some shape or form, right? The drones are one kind of terrorism. This is another kind of terrorism. They're just the stealing of children and shipping them off to Russia is another, and telling them, which they're doing, telling the poor Ukrainian children, we found out in an Associated Press investigation, they're telling the Ukrainian children, your parents don't love you anymore and they don't want you. And that's why we're taking you to Russia. Imagine telling that to some young kid. And Associated Press did an investigation and said it's true. That's what the Russians have been saying. So everything is just a different kind of terrorism, a different variation with them. That woman, I've got two more stories left. That woman, remember that protester that a lot of Ukrainians were not terribly sure about this woman. The woman on the Moscow News that had the sign behind her that said, I forgot what it said, but like, these are all lies or whatever it was. And a lot of the Ukrainians were, very suspicious of this woman. And a lot of us were kind of wondering too, well, she has fled the country again. She has been under house arrest. She finally fled Russia with her daughter, her lawyer says. I have no idea. I mean, the first time she fled to like Germany without her daughter. And I was kind of looking at that going, you went on stage, on a television stage, and held up a sign criticizing your government when your government's a dictatorship, knowing what's going to happen, knowing that they are going to put your butt in jail. They didn't, by the way, which is part of the reason people are very suspicious of this woman. Because in Russia, come on, you went on the national news, the nightly news, and you held up a sign protesting the war. These people are getting, years in prison for just standing on the street with a piece of paper, right? And she goes on the nightly news, gets like a $300 fine, a $400 fine, dollar rubles, but $300 version, $350, something like that fine, and flees the country and goes to Germany, but leaves her kid behind. Yeah, her name is Marina Ovsyannikova. See, I said that well. But leaves her kid behind, which is also weird to me. Like, you knew what was going on. This isn't The Handmaid's Tale. They didn't like take your kid away from you or something. You knew your kid was there when you were protesting. This story is really weird. Anyway, she took her kid with her, which is good for the kid, but the whole story is just weird. Finally, there was a prisoner swap today between the Ukrainians and the Russian-backed. Oh, my pronunciation was fabulous. Ovsyannikova? Please. You, only a Russian troll would say that Moose and Squirtle is going away. Bye-bye. До свидания. So the last story, prisoner swap with Russian-backed forces in Donetsk, which is one of the eastern provinces of Ukraine. It included 108 women who were prisoners of war being held by the Russians, released 108 Ukrainian women released, which is great. All right, guys, let's get to the question and answer. As always, the Q&A function on TikTok is in my profile. Feel free to use that. We're going to go till pretty much the top of the hour, so a good 20 minutes here of questions and just discussions. Oh, we've had a lot of trolls. My TikToks are getting more popular again, and we were getting more Russian trolls as a result. What do you do? And for you guys, obviously, the comments and everything else. So let me jump right in. and look for TikTok comment. One moment. But make sure to jump in there. Oops, TikTok Q&A. For sake of argument, let's say Putin orders nuclear strikes. What steps does that go through, and what are the chances those responsible would do it? You know, I had looked into this, and I mean, I looked into it months ago, so I don't remember all the details now, but I remember there was like a multi-step process. It wasn't like Putin pushes a button and the rockets take off. What worries me is recently I saw some of the Russia experts say, yeah, Big Hawk, you're being funny. Yeah, exactly. I saw Russia experts saying recently that, you know, in Russia, it's not like there's anybody there to stand between nukes and Putin. Like Putin orders the nukes, they go off. They felt like they would go off. I don't know. I don't know that we know, basically, as to what would really happen. You know, you would think, though, again, in talking to one of my friends this weekend about it, who's a guy who would know about these kind of things, background in Soviet studies and work experience, et cetera. And he was saying, you know, at what point does the Ministry of Defense, do the security services, the FSB, which is the following of the KGB, do all of these guys just get fed up with Putin and somebody decides to just, you know, bye-bye, Vlad? You know, I mean, at what point do they just say enough is enough? And, you know, ordering nukes, nuclear strike might, because if you're one of the generals, you're looking at that going, NATO's going to destroy us if we do that. Right? Why would we possibly want to do that? And you're going to isolate yourself even more in the world. You also risk isolating Russia from the developing countries that it's fostered such a relationship with. I mean, China, India, and Latin America, Africa, everywhere else. I mean, you know, even they might not be too thrilled with Russia nuking another, you know, country that is, I don't know if I would call Ukraine developing, but country that is still, you know, still finding its way, you know. Didn't hear John, the fighter crash. Did I mention the fighter crash? Oh, did I skip it? Oh, I skipped it by accident. Yeah, there was 6 people were killed when a Russian Su-34 fighter bomber crashed into a residential building in the town of Yesk. That town I can't pronounce. With seeing it in English, I'd have to see it in Russian. In Krasnodar Krai. It was a pretty wild video that's out there of this plane crash. I mean, it's the pilot looks like he ejected. Problems during takeoff, I think I read, and the plane just crashes into this residential building, 9-story residential building. He ejects, but the plane hits the building full of fuel. The plane is full of fuel and sets the entire building on fire. I mean, I'm surprised only 6 people were killed, but that was the latest number as of right before I started the show. So that's the question. I mean, Rob Wall is saying, who do you think would replace Putin if he goes away? That's the problem. We don't know. I mean, when people were talking about this a few months ago, what's his name? Sorry, I've got a bit of a headache tonight. The guy, there's a guy who's just as crazy as Putin, just as conservative, whatever you want to call him. I mean, Medvedev is insane, but the other one, I think he's like the head of their National Security Council or something. Because Medvedev is like the number 2 of the deputy of the National Security Council. It's the top guy. No, it starts with a P, or what's his name? Push. No, it's Push something. No, if you know the name, you'll know it. He's not a household. It's not Peskov. Peskov's the spokesman. Patrushev, that's it. Or Patrushov. I believe that's it. Yeah, Patrushov. Look at Boston Barca. I think that's the name. Yeah. That he was one guy being talked about, which is scary. I think it's Patrushev. Pushkin. Everyone's throwing in all the other names now. Yeah, I think it's Patrushev. You know, it partially depends on how they get rid of Putin. I mean, if it's the military that gets rid of him, or if it's the security services, you'd think they would have somebody to replace him with. They would, in principle. I mean, they wouldn't just get rid of the guy and not have their own guy and everybody else ready to go, you know? So, but is it clear that anybody else would be better? I mean, what you'd hope would be anybody else coming could just wipe the slate clean and say, this other guy was a lunatic. He got us into a war. He didn't bring enough troops. He ran it into the ground. And now we don't have a choice but to pull out because he killed all our boys and ruined it so that there's no way for us to win because he ruined everything, right? That would be best possibility of what could happen, but there's no guarantee that that's what would actually happen. Let me see here. Well, and that's correct. And Andy's saying, for example, any nuclear weapons used by Putin, NATO would be able to destroy Russia with just conventional weapons. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. We wouldn't have to use nukes to respond, and we wouldn't use nukes to respond because part of the problem is, Russia uses nuclear weapons in Ukraine. We're not going to respond with nuclear weapons in Ukraine. I mean, I don't think the Ukrainians would be very thrilled about us using nuclear weapons on them, even if it was in response to Russia, right? So that's the first problem. The second problem is, as I said, it's not like we're going to use nuclear weapons on Russians in Russia, because that literally is World War III. So no. And if the war stays conventional, we win. Because the Russians are already having a very hard time with a conventional war against Ukraine. Imagine them fighting NATO. It'd be a disaster for them if they fought NATO. Absolutely. We would. I mean, if it was a conventional war, we'd win. There's just no question about it. Elise Leonard. Russian occupiers shot and killed Yuri Kripatenko, a conductor. Oh, I saw that picture. A conductor in Kherson for refusing to play music for them. Such a classic Enzi move. I had retweeted it, but I didn't know the whole story. I just knew that they had killed the conductor, and people were, let me see. I've got the picture here because I'd retweeted it earlier today. Oh no, this is the pregnant woman. Yeah. This was the this was the pregnant woman. Look at the story about her. This is the pregnant woman that the Russians killed today when the drones hit the building that she was in. Actually, I'll show you guys her picture and then I'll read it to you. That's her picture. This is Victoria. She worked as a sommelier. A sommelier is a wine expert and was getting ready to welcome her baby into the world. Victoria and her husband Bogdan were killed by Russia today. Now, the other was the composer, and I may have retweeted that last night. Let me see here. Let me see. Just because I believe there was a photo, and I think I retweeted it simply because I think it's nice to sort of honor these people and at least try to honor their memory a bit with photos and things. Not that one. I may not find it. Depends how far back it was. I'll stop looking in a minute, but shoot. I'm not finding it now. Oh, here it is. No, this was a different one. This is a different one, but I wanted to share this too, just because I felt sorry for this kid. A young Belarusian volunteer, Mikhail Shavelsky, died in Ukraine. He was only 21 years old. Mikhail studied at Grodno University, where he was expelled for political reasons. He's from Belarus. Then he moved to Poland. Since the beginning of the war in Ukraine, he went there as a volunteer, 21 years old, and just from Belarus, kicked out for political reasons, which means he already was politically active. And of course, Belarus is a dictatorship run by Putin's buddy Lukashenko. Volunteered in Ukraine and killed. Horrible, just horrible. Carlos, thank you for that. I love your name, Carlos. Carlos Bond. It's like Carlos, but Bond. It's very sort of English or whatever it is. What else we got here? Hang on, pull up another TikTok question here. Beep, 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 beep. Finally caught up on my Handmaid's Tale. When the Beslan incident happened, the Russian government never admitted more than 300. What is the Beslan incident? I don't recognize it by the name. Never admitted more than 300 deaths. Well over 1,000 people died. There's no way only 6 people died in that crash. Okay. Okay. Right. Yeah. What is the Beslan incident? The school shooting? 1,000 people died in a school shooting? Okay. I'm not sure what school shooting this is, but okay. Okay. School that got attacked by Chechens is in Beslan. Okay. I'm not even remembering this. Jeez, 1,000 people died? Jesus Christ. Okay. I'm not even remembering that. Wow. Wow. Oh, concert hall. That's different. Okay, concert hall. I was going to say school. Concert hall, I'm remembering. Yes. Yes. Yeah, the hostages. That I remember. Yeah. 1,000 people. Oh, I didn't realize that. Oh, wow. They gassed them. Oh, yeah. That I remember. Oh, yeah. I remember all of that. Yeah, sorry. I was like, school shooting. I'm like, 1,000 people died in a school shooting? Like, all right. Thank you for the hat there. Danielle, thanks again for the Discord subscribers chat over the weekend. Sure. We got it. We'll sort of work on that. I think people were still a little, we need to get people more warmed up for those in the future. Very interesting and great to be able to voice chat. Too shy for the camera. Maybe next month. Just make yourself pretty before. Put on a hat. That's what I do if I have to. Yes, the Chechen terrorists. Yeah, but I remember they were gassed, and the Russians basically like gassed them, which was kind of bad. When will the nuclear bombs begin to drop? Probably not anytime soon. Again, there's no advantage. The only advantage to Russia is to threaten nuclear war, not to have nuclear war. I mean, everyone loses an actual nuclear war, which is the other problem that Russia has to worry about is if they use nukes, will we use nukes in response? There still has to be a part of them that goes, most likely we're not going to, but if you're Russian government, you're going, And frankly, as somebody else said, I don't know if it was Adam or who, we'll win a conventional war like that with Russia. I mean, if anything, Russia's bigger fear isn't us responding with nukes. Their fear is us responding conventionally, because a conventional war, we're going to win. We're going to win. What else here? Do you think the U.S. could guarantee Putin's death if he starts a nuclear war, or will he be able to live out his life in some bunker unharmed? I mean, if there's a nuclear war, he's going to be in a bunker. So he may live unharmed, so to speak. But, we got bigger problems at that point. I mean, I'm not too worried about Putin if that happens. But I mean, there would be a bunker. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to, for example, the Iranian nukes, or the Iranian nuclear production, I should say, the labs or whatever, I remember 20 years ago, the assessment was it would be very difficult, almost 20 years ago, to take out Iran's nuclear production because so many of the labs are in bunkers and things like that. They're like way under the ground, where it would just be very difficult for us to take them out. I think even with nukes, people were saying it would be very difficult to take it out. It's not a silver bullet, but they're hard to take out, is the question, right? Colonel Mustard's okay. What's he do? Colonel Mustard's okay. I don't know, whatever fight you guys are getting into on TikTok, be nice, okay? Mustard's long-time guy. He's okay, but if you guys are getting into a fight, maybe everybody calm down a little bit, okay? Okay, somebody looks like they had a Clofefe moment on a TikTok question. Russian jet, I just talked about. Is it true that a Russian member of parliament declared war on South Park and Peppa Pig? I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised. Thank you for the corgi there. I would not be surprised. South Park, I absolutely would believe. I would love to know what South Park did. God, has South Park been covering Ukraine? Can you imagine? I mean, they must. I can only imagine. That had to be amazing. Peppa Pig, I don't know. Who is Peppa Pig? Perhaps I should know who Peppa Pig is, but South Park, I definitely know. But we can't, though. Clifford is saying, since Putin has been identified as truly out of control, why haven't we taken him out like Osama and Saddam Hussein? We haven't because a number of reasons. Russia has nuclear weapons. When you try to take out the president of Russia, you have now declared war on Russia. Declaring war on Libya or Iraq isn't as difficult as declaring war on Russia. Libya and Iraq can't do as much back to us, right? So you can go after their leaders, but we don't want an all-out conventional or nuclear war with Russia. I mean, it's just not a good idea, even if we'd win a conventional war. The second problem is, and we talked about this earlier, is if you're going to take out the head of a country, you better know who's coming next. There's no guarantee that it's somebody better who comes along if Putin were to be taken out, right? You also have the problem of, and this is a concern in Iran as well, but it was a concern back with other countries, when you take out a very strong, charismatic leader or whatever word you want to use, even a dictator like Saddam Hussein, if there isn't a deep bench of people following him who can step right in and hold the country together, right? So one of the concerns with Iraq, and I mean, Iraq didn't fall apart into 3 different countries, but it did kind of fall apart anyway, right? And that's one of the problems you can have, is that all of a sudden then the country starts falling apart as well. And in Russia's case, sure, a lot of us probably wouldn't shed any tears if Russia were to fall apart. But, it's a country with nuclear weapons falling apart. On the border with Europe, at least part of it's on the border with Europe, that could still be a little scary. Which I yawn at you guys. Woo, sorry. Daddy Pig. Yeah, do not Peppa Pig. I'm gonna have to Google Peppa Pig after this. Let me see. Have you heard anything about the Russians drafting people over the age of 70? No, that would be insane. I mean, I'm hoping that's not true. I don't know. Even for the Russians, that sounds a bit over the top, but I mean, who knows? Who knows? Yeah. Why do Fox News and Republicans seem to support Russia? Because of Donald Trump. That's it. Because of Donald Trump. Why Donald Trump supports Russia? Boy, isn't that a complicated question that none of us really know the true story to, I think. But Trump early on, Trump's always been a Putin fan and a Russia. Look, Trump has this whole Slavic thing, right? What? 2 of the 3 wives were Slavic, right? I mean, Melania, Ivana, the first one, who mysteriously died recently. Right? He's big on the Slavic woman thing. And I think he's big on Slavic culture. He's big on mafia culture too. He's big on dictator culture, loves his dictators, right? So he's always been big on the Russia thing. Trump having to be pro-Russia meant that the Republicans had to be pro-Russia. And they did. Trump then, of course, being Trump, decided to then concoct a whole conspiracy theory, or I should say, Trump, channeling his inner Elon Musk, decided to listen to people concocting conspiracy theories, and full of dung. Okay, you're not even American. Full of dung. That was cute. Dung. So Trump concocted a whole conspiracy theory about Ukraine, that Ukraine was involved in 2016 in helping Hillary try to steal the election. I mean, it was crazy talk. But you've got Trump saying this, and we've seen, by the way, the whole Trump lie about the election being stolen, right? Look at the number of Republicans who believe him. They're willing to believe anything. Sadly, it's a bit of a cult. They're willing to believe anything this guy says. So you've got Republican leaders in Washington who are afraid of Trump, Republican leaders in Washington who are in it for their own money and power. So even if they're not afraid of Trump, they don't care about the country. So they're happy to embrace him and his lies. You've got Republican voters who, far too many of them, are in a cult. And you'd have to get into an analysis of what would motivate a Republican voter to either excuse all the things Trump has done, or to go one step further and believe all the crazy things that Trump has claimed, but they do. The election lie, what was it, like 70% or something of Republican voters believe that the election was stolen? I mean, it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. It's been already, Trump's own people proved to him that the election wasn't stolen. His own attorney general looked into it and said, Bill Barr, it wasn't stolen, right? But they all believe it. So big surprise that Trump says Putin's great. Trump says Russia's great. Trump says Ukraine is corrupt. And then you've got Fox News, which again, combine A, afraid of Trump, B, corrupt as hell. Fox News just wants money. They want the advertisers and the market share. Tucker Carlson, who knows what motivates Tucker Carlson? Who knows, right? But you've got all of these guys repeating Trump's lies. And finally, and I'll put it like this, I've told people this on COVID. On COVID or the election lies. Put the Republicans aside. Imagine you're any other normal American, okay? You're not far-right Trumper. And CNN, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, as I said, CNN, the Washington Post, and the New York Times all come together and tell you the election was stolen. And the COVID vaccine, it's dangerous, right? All of that. I mean, if Barack Obama and all of these other ones are, and it's backed up by CNN and the Washington Post and the New York Times, I'm going to believe it. If all of them come and say it, that's what happened on the Republican side. Their presidential guy that they like says it. Their top news show, their top news network that they trust say it, right? I mean, and their top leaders in Congress who they trust say it. Why wouldn't they believe it? Why wouldn't they believe it? It's your apostrophe R-E. We've got the trolls who don't know how to spell. All right, guys. Let me do a quick recap and then we are done for the evening. I will go and we'll do a little hangout on Discord afterwards. You can find my Discord, by the way. Actually, before you disappear on TikTok, follow me, please. Follow. Please. And the rest of you follow as well. We'll go to my Discord, which is discord.aravosis.com afterwards. We just hang out a bit and we kind of, we try not to talk about politics. I think we'll talk about TV. I finally caught up with Handmaid's Tale. And I wouldn't mind talking a little bit about Rings of Power as well, because I just caught up on all of those last night. Handmaid's Tale especially. It got good again. But if you want, you can go to my aravosis.com, my last name.com, and it's my link tree, and you'll have my Discord, my t-shirt store where you can buy lots of fun Ukrainian geared stuff, t-shirts and things. You'll find my Patreon, which you can use to support me in my Discord, or you can just use the Patreon. Thank you, Stephen. The Patreon just to support me in general. And more from there. But let me do a quick recap. But thank you again, everybody, for joining me, for following, and for the gifts on TikTok and YouTube. Still got some time for TikTok gifts, so keep them coming. All right, quick recap. Russia hit Ukraine with massive kamikaze drone strike today, 28 drones, and then an hour later hit them again. Only 4 were dead, including a pregnant woman and her husband. Only 4 were killed, most likely because the Ukrainians were able to take out a lot of the drones, and also some of the drones were hitting electrical infrastructure and things like that, where there weren't people involved. Elon Musk backtracks again. Starlink is back on. He's paying for it again, but now has decided to throw... Actually, and I didn't even put 2 and 2 together on this. Elon is, though, throwing Ukraine under the bridge again by saying, but you better give back Crimea. Thank you, Addie. Because it's part of Elon having to dig in, like, fine, I'll give you your Starlink, but you better give up Crimea, right? God damn it. They did it again. They reported me. These son of a bitches. Yep. TikTok did it again. Son of a bitch. I hate when they do that. All right. Now I've got to wait to go live on TikTok again. I mean, we're sort of ending anyway, but I hate when they do that. I just hate when they do that. They reported my TikTok again. Misinformation. Man, it's whenever I talk about Trump. That they did this. TikTok ended it because I was talking about Trump. Hey, TikTokers. So did you notice I just got done talking about Donald Trump and people reported it and TikTok took it down for misinformation? Whenever I talk about Trump, that happens. Every freaking time. Remember the 2 guests that got canceled on TikTok? It's because we were talking about Trump when it happened. And they did it again. Yep. All I've got to say about that is, okay, it pisses me off though. Because we still had 800 or 900 people on. It's like, I was just doing my recap. Oh, somebody's going to hear from me on that one. Well, yeah, but how do they get away with reporting it? That's the thing I don't get. How do they get away with it? I just don't get it. And TikTok claims like they have moderators sitting in. What moderator? We were just talking about Elon Musk and Starlink. What was the misinformation on Elon Musk and Starlink? Their reporting system is so bad. All right. Welcome back, TikTok. TikTok canceled my live because of misinformation. because, I criticized the Donald. That's the third time TikTok has canceled a live of mine when we were criticizing the Donald. Just kind of interesting. Thank you for the guitar. If you feel like it on TikTok, feel free to give some gifts for the next couple minutes as I finish my recap as to make me feel better. Thank you. So here we go. So yes, Elon Musk backtracked, but is still trying to do all he can to, cause trouble for Ukraine by saying Crimea needs to be returned. The mayor of Moscow says he is ending the city's military mobilization. Thank you, Cami, for that, which is very interesting. I showed you a picture of 3 of the Russian recruits who look like they could be my father or my grandfather. 2 or 3, Tajik troops opened fire on their Russian compatriots in Belgorod this weekend on Saturday. These are all newly mobilized Russian troops, and apparently the Russian soldiers thought it would be a wise move to belittle belittle Allah. Thank you for that on TikTok. To belittle Allah and call him a coward, who's the Muslim word for God. And the Tajik soldiers grabbed their machine guns and opened fire and killed 11 of the Russian troops. Thank you for the flowers there. I mean, really, really kind of amazing story. Meanwhile, Russian news is reporting that Russian units are asking, Russian military units are asking people to crowdfund for winter gear, socks, drones, and ammunition for rifles. Families of newly mobilized, I forgot to tell you this one. I skipped over this one by accident. Families of newly mobilized recruits in the Russian region of the Russian town of Yakutsk can get a one-time bag of cabbage, potatoes, onions, carrots, and beetroot in exchange for their child's life. 6 people were killed when a Russian Su-34 fighter bomber crashed into a residential building in the town of Yesk or something. I don't know. They wrote it in English, and I can't read Russian names in English. The embattled Zaporizhia nuclear plant went onto its backup generators again because the Russians hit the power lines. Marina Ovsyannikova, who was the former Russian TV journalist who stood on the air and held her sign in the air during a broadcast, has fled the country with her daughter. And finally, there was a prisoner swap with Russian-backed forces in Donetsk, which is in eastern Ukraine, and 108 Ukrainian women Ukrainian female troops were released, which is pretty cool. Very cool. Don't know what to tell you about what things are worth on TikTok. I can't tell you. I just know it's helpful. Typically TikTok's pretty good about it, though. I think maybe it's 50. I mean, it's not as good as YouTube. Maybe it's 50% of the money we get on the gifts you put, like the floating gifts, the hat and that kind of stuff, which isn't bad. I mean, they're pretty good, But of the gift, but the gold thing and the diamond thing always confuses me. But I know in terms of the cash you spend, we get about half, which is actually quite good for the. I wish it were more, but it's actually quite good. No, Brittany Griner. There's no news because Brittany Griner, her appeal is taking place, and possibly, thank you, Dawn, for that. Brittany's appeal, and Flower Lady, appropriately Flower Lady, Brittany's appeal is taking place momentarily. I don't know if it was the 25th of the month or what, but it's happening right now. So, I don't think anybody thinks Brittany's going to win her appeal in Russia. I mean, whether or not Brittany did anything wrong, and I think, Brittany Griner, we're talking, I think it's important to remind folks too, and then I am going to go, that, she's in a Russian prison. I mean, this poor woman at this point would confess to anything if it would get her out of prison. So the idea of her confessing to having minor amounts of whatever it was, hashish or whatever the hell it was, maybe, but it's under duress. I'm still not convinced that it happened. I'm really not. So there's there. Oh, interesting, Rob. I wasn't even thinking that with YouTube. Yeah, that's interesting. All right, guys. I am going to say sayonara before TikTok decides it doesn't like the color of my shirt. And we will see you guys tomorrow, as always, 6 p.m. Eastern. And There you go. All right. Have a good night. Oh, feel free to go to the Discord. We'll go hang out on the Discord. Discord.aravosis.com. And you scroll to the left column all the way down and you'll see voice channels, and then you'll see after party. Okay. You like journalist or a misinformation spreadette? Spreadette? I'd like to be a spreadette. That sounds kind of fun. A spreadette. It's somebody who spreads, but kind of, I don't know, maybe with a dance in their step, a spreadette. All right, guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Otherwise, come to the Discord, okay? Thank you, everybody, for joining, and thank you for the gifts. You are, as always, very generous and helpful, so thank you.